For more than 3 decades, Washington has clung to a vision called the One Somalia Policy. The idea was simple, at least on paper: support Mogadishu, rebuild Somalia, and eventually reunite Somaliland under a single Somali state. It was a policy that every single US president since 1991 has repeated. It was a mantra that the United Nations poured billions of dollars into. It was the framework guiding Western diplomacy across the Horn of Africa. But the results speak for themselves. Billions in aid, decades of peacekeeping mission, endless conferences in Nairobi, London, and Brussels. And yet, Somalia is still divided, unstable, and unable to stand on its own 2 feet. Al-Shabaab continues to terrorize citizens. Corruption swells international support. Political factions battle for power in Mogadishu, while ordinary Somalis remain trapped in poverty and insecurity. But here and now, President Donald J. Trump finally did what others wouldn't. He declared the One Somalia Policy is dead. And in its place, he announced something historic. The United States is looking into recognizing Somaliland. This is not just a diplomatic adjustment. This is a strategic earthquake, one that will reshape the balance of power in the Horn of Africa, the Middle East, and the world order. Welcome to Somaliland 360, presented by Blueprint Media. My name is Abdifatah Qalinly, live and unfiltered. Let's read between the lines. Let's be honest. The One Somalia Policy has been one of America's longest-running foreign policy failures. For 30-plus years, Washington and its allies poured resources into Mogadishu. The hope was that Somalia could be rebuilt into a central government capable of reuniting the country. Instead, in 2025, Somalia has remained a failed state. The Somali government is propelled up almost entirely by international donors. Corruption is endemic, siphoning away aid money intended for people. Security forces trained by the West have repeatedly collapsed or been defeated. Al-Shabaab remains powerful, taxing the population, running shadow courts, and even controlling territories. And perhaps most damaging of all, Somalia has chosen to lean away from the West. Mogadishu is now courting Beijing, Turkey, and Qatar, authoritarian powers who see Somalia not as a partner in democracy, but as a pawn in their own strategic game. So here's the truth. The US kept the One Somalia Policy alive out of habit, not results. Trump's decision to end it is not just symbolic. It's an admission that 30 years of policy achieved little more than disappointment. Now compare the record of the failed state of Somalia with Somaliland. In 1991, Somaliland unilaterally declared its independence and the dissolution of the Somali Union that was established in 1960 after the fall of the Siad Barre dictatorship. While Somalia fell deeper into civil war, Somaliland took a different path. It disarmed militants. It held peace conferences. It drafted its own constitution and built democratic institutions from the ground up. And here's what it achieved. Without recognition, without billions in foreign aid, without UN propping it up, peaceful transfer of power, Somaliland held multiple competitive elections where the leaders stepped down after defeats, which is a rarity in Africa. Internal security. Somaliland has remained free of the chaos engulfing southern Somalia, keeping terrorism at bay. Alliances that reflect Western values. Somaliland supports Taiwan and cooperates with native members and has always signaled openness to the United States of America. The rule of law. While imperfect, Somaliland government stands in sharp contrast to the dysfunction in Mogadishu. Now, from that strategic perspective, Somaliland sits in one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the world, the Gulf of Aden, at the gateway to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a choke point through which nearly 30% of global trade passes every single day. This is the contrast President Donald J. Trump recognized. On one side, a failed state leaning towards China, aka Somalia. On the other side, a stable democratic partner waiting for recognition, aka Somaliland. So why now? Why this move? And why President Donald Trump? The answer is simply strategy. The United States faces an intensifying rivalry with China, not only in the Pacific, but across the globe. And nowhere is China's power rising more visible than the Red Sea. In Djibouti, Beijing built its first overseas base, just few miles from the United States naval base. It has poured billions into ports, railways, and infrastructure across East Africa. And it has leaned on Mogadishu to block any recognition of Somaliland, punishing it for supporting Taiwan. Trump's recognition of Somaliland is a direct counterpunch. It ensures that America, not China, holds the advantage on the world's most critical waterways. The deal being discussed goes far beyond recognition. A U.S. base at Berbera, giving Washington an unmatched leverage across the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Access to critical minerals, resources essential for America's defense and technology industries, reducing dependency on China. New trade and investment opportunities, opening Somaliland's economy to U.S. companies in energy, infrastructure, and agriculture. Stronger regional partnership, linking Somaliland with Ethiopia, UAE, and the UK, all under the U.S.'s security umbrella. This isn't just about Somaliland's independence. This is about the United States building a new alliance system in the Horn of Africa. So what does this mean for the future? For Somaliland, recognition is not just symbolic, it's transformative. It ends 3 decades of limbo and brings access to aid, investment, and international legitimacy. For Africa, it sets a precedent. It shows that the world can recognize stability and democracy, even if it means redrawing colonial-era borders. Somaliland could become the first newly recognized African state in decades. For the United States, it's a masterstroke. It secures an ally in the Horn of Africa, strengthens control of global shipping route, and sends a message to Beijing. America is not retreating, it is advancing. For Somalia, it's a painful reality. The free ride is over. Years of support without accountability has ended. Mogadishu must now face the consequences of its corruption and its alliances. And for the world, it's a reminder that global politics is not static. Policies can change. Borders can shift. New alliances can be born. The Trump decision is not just about Somaliland. It's about rebalancing the international order in a way that favors democracy, strategy, and results over wishful thinking. For 30+ years, Washington said, "One Somalia," but the reality on the ground was always different. Somalia was fracturing, and Somaliland was building. The policy was outdated. President Trump's decision to end the One Somalia Policy and recognizing Somaliland is more than a diplomatic move. It's a turning point in history. It means the U.S. has finally chosen results over failure, strategy over sentiment, partnership over pretense. The Horn of Africa, the Middle East, and the global order will never look the same again. I am Abdifatah Qalinly, and this was a special report presented by Somaliland 360, where we read between the lines. Please like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.